Deputy Speaker. It's no surprise that this parental bereavement pay and leave bill, these measures are warmly welcomed across this House and indeed across the United Kingdom. And several of us in the House of Commons have had the tragic and life-changing experience of having to bury our own child. And we talked much about this in the committee stage of the bill in the previous session of Parliament. And we all understood the importance of these measures, but also that these measures were not for us. It's for all those people, all those men and women who in the future will have to undergo this agony for themselves. And we in public life who have gone through this terrible experience have a duty, I believe a sacred and moral duty, to improve the situation for those who in time to come will suffer the same terrible fate of losing a child. And I wish to also pay tribute to the former member for Edisbury, Antoinette Sandbach, who, though no longer a member of this House, did much work in the area of parental bereavement and baby loss, and it's important to remember that. This bill is non-partisan, and that is exactly as it should be. And it's no secret that, whilst I wholeheartedly support these measures as far as they go, and I hear what the member for Thursk Malden said about this being an opening salvo in a perhaps more comprehensive protection for bereaved parents, even taking that into account, it's no secret, I think, that I don't think this bill, these measures don't go far enough, but it is a start. It started life as that most fragile of things, a private member's bill, and it is down in no small part to the hard work led by the honourable member for Thursk and Malden, who sponsored the original private member's bill. These measures, right or wrong, they correct the injustice that bereaved parents who bury their son or daughter are, under the law, they have not been entitled to paid or unpaid or specific entitlement for time off work. And that means that any leave that was taken in such circumstances was entirely at the discretion of employers. And we know that most employers would be hugely sympathetic in such circumstances to a member of staff facing such a loss, not just as an employer, of course, but as a fellow human being. We also know that others may not be, and we heard anecdotal evidence of that, of such cases, particularly in committee. I was delighted that the amendment I put forward to the original at the committee stage of the bill, that parents who suffered a stillbirth were included. A clear sign, I think, of the careful and considered cross-party working that has taken the bill as far as it has got today. To face the death of a son or daughter with no entitlement to paid leave under the law has been for too long a terrible, terrible injustice that generations of people before us have suffered, and I'm proud that this has now been addressed. But these measures set out a minimum leave period of 2 weeks, and I know that's not very long, but given that currently, up to this point, there was no entitlement at all, it offers the start that I referred to before, and it importantly provides legal recognition that the response to a life-changing event can no longer be, and should no longer be, a matter of discretion for employers. This is one of those days, Mr Deputy Speaker, when we can feel that we are making a real difference, a practical difference to the lives of our constituents as they face perhaps the worst experience they ever can face. People cope with the devastation of losing a child in a variety of ways, and we know that. There's no right or wrong way to grieve, there's no right or wrong way to cope with loss. And that's why I had hoped, through the passage of this legislation, for more flexibility as to when this paid leave could be taken. But I take on board, and I very much welcome the comments the Minister made just a wee while back about flexibility, because that's very important. Parents need to grieve in their own way and in their own time as far as possible. The circumstances of the loss of a child will matter, and bereaved parents must have the full protection of the law. And I hope that at some point the Government will revisit this to try and develop that into perhaps a more sensitive package than it currently is. I also wanted these measures to cover offspring beyond the age of 18 years limit as set out in these provisions. These measures are, after all, about bereaved parents. They're not about the child who has been lost. And it really ought not, it ought not to be about the circumstances of the age at which the child is lost. It's about protecting the parents following the loss of a son or daughter, something which goes against the natural order of events. So these provisions set out today are indeed extremely welcome, but I look forward today, and I hope the Minister is listening, I look forward to the day when the scope of these measures are expanded in the ways I have set out, and I'll continue to work towards that end with anybody who's willing to work with me for the sake of my own stillborn son, a full-term baby Kenneth.